Hello everyone, my name is Mike and I am one of the in-house consultants here at the Profs. But again, consultancy is not the only thing I do here. I also work as a tutor, primarily in maths and science. And one science that I'm going to be talking about in particular today is biology. Why? Because I'm looking at how you get an A star in A-level biology. It's an incredibly popular subject to be able to study at school, but it's certainly not for the faint of heart. The first tip I'm going to be giving for a subject like this, as well as any other one, is understand your exam structure as well as your specification. Now, it could be that you look at the specifications first and then the exam. That might be more natural, but the earlier you do this for both of these things, the better. And I wouldn't be suggesting that you are looking at the exam structure early in order to scare yourself out of doing this kind of a subject at A-level. You mainly just want to be making sure you understand the differences between different exam boards. Not every exam board offers exams in exactly the same way. We'll go with one obvious example. And again, I know this from experience because I've had to do it this year. If you look at the AQA A-level biology syllabus, paper 3, you have to write an essay, a semiotic essay, based on a very, very general topic. So it could be, for instance, talk about biological processes where molecules are built up or broken down. And then you have to look over the entirety of the A-level, make connections across the syllabus with what you think would work. And even then, if you're aiming for like maybe the top 25 marks actually out of that question, you want to be talking about something as well outside of the syllabus. I didn't do that personally because of time, but if you really want to come across as an A-star student and you are aiming for every mark in this paper, that is something you definitely should be doing. If you are not a fan of writing essays, then maybe AQA is not for you. So if you take a look on the screen right now, you should see a few of the basic sort of differences that I put down in between the different exam boards. But I do encourage you to go away and do your own research about what makes your A-level biology unique based on the exam board that you are with. This is, again, particularly important if you are homeschooled and you are in the process of actually choosing these A-levels. But even if you're doing it with a school, it's important to know how things are going to be structured. The same thing can be done with the syllabus too. So, for instance, you have to learn about different bits of biochemistry within your first term in AQA biology. In fact, that's one of the first things you learn about. It might not be the first thing you learn about in OCR, though. I know that with old OCR syllabuses, biochemistry comes towards the end of the AS level syllabus. So you can actually get a head start already in knowing what is going to come up where, which is really, really key if you want to be doing well in the subject overall. And of course, with biology, more so than any other subject, there are going to be topics that you will have to learn about in your A-level, you're not going to learn about in others. So for example, and this is an exam board that hasn't been put on the page actually earlier. If you look at EDUCAS, they have a particular component on reproduction that you have to really understand inside and out, both from the male and female perspective. But you don't really learn about that in AQA, A-level biology, for instance. It just doesn't come up. But one thing that we've had to, do as part of AQA A-level biology is look at the ELISA test or the non-direct ELISA test. We need to know how that works. And maybe there are a couple of particular examples of gene technologies that you need to be fully aware of, especially when we're talking about gene therapies, maybe in the A2 component of biology A-level. So know the differences, know what makes your A-level unique, and know how your exams are structured. Again, with every video I say this, and with any bit of preparation, the earlier, the better. But don't do this to psych yourself out. Do this just to give yourself an action plan of what eventually you will be working towards. Saying that as a general point, I'm going to move on to my next one, which is specifically to do with understanding the core fundamentals. An A level in biology requires you to make quite a bit of a jump from GCSE biology. Not only are you just simply saying why something happens, you're going to be introduced to a lot of unknown situations where you have to apply the knowledge you already have in order to make sense of it. And for that to happen, you need to know your stuff inside and out. So I would be looking in particular, and this is really nice for biology because everything is so well structured into separate modules, and there isn't really many cases at all where you are having to go from one thing to another. But you could put them into general different categories, I would say. So in one aspect of biology, you have the ecological side of things. You're going to be looking at species, like speciation. You're going to be looking at succession and evolution. And you need to know all of these terms basically to a word-by-word definition for you to be able to regurgitate in an exam. You also have maybe a little bit of work to do in terms of understanding like different biological systems within your own body. So that could be to do with homeostasis. It could be to do with the respiratory system, the circulatory system, the lymphatic system. And you got to learn all of the differences between these things and how they all connect with each other. And I would say anything to do with biochemical processes is going to be really important. That involves you learning all of the different types of molecules. So for example, you have to learn about monosaccharides, disaccharides, and polysaccharides. You need to learn about polypeptides. You need to learn about nucleotides. So you need to understand the differences between monomers and polymers. And then you need to know how they work in other systems. So for instance, muscle contraction. Maybe you're looking at specifically where ATP is actually used in order to release energy in the middle of an active process. So I would be looking specifically at making as many links across the content or across the syllabus as possible to save you a bit of time. That's just to name a few things, but the rest of that work is up to you. Moving on to my next tip is something a little bit different, but is necessary for every single science A level. You need to understand your experiments, whether they include practical endorsements or not. Similar with physics, or especially with the AQA one, you don't technically need to do a practical endorsement, but it's encouraged that you do one in order to get onto a university place, especially if you are still in school and you're not a mature student. The rule there is a little bit different if you are a mature student, but that's possibly a topic for another video. Regardless of whether you do that or not, you're still going to be tested on 12 set practicals, and they are different in every single exam board. There may be some crossover, but you've got to know exactly what your experiments are. And similar with the physics A level that we had just spoken about very recently, if you want to find it, you can find the video up here. Then you need to know how an experiment works, what the apparatus is, how do you make it safe, what is the base or underlying hypothesis, and what do you actually find out about it instead? Where can error come about? You need to know all of the intricacies because you will be tested on your understanding of experimental design. This can include as well in biology an understanding of the different types of microscopes as well, which does tend to be missed by students a lot because this is very, very early on. So understand the benefits of light microscopes in comparison to electronic microscopes, and there are different types of those too. So make sure that you have separate notes for your practicals than you do for your core content. And if you revise that equally, you should have a very good understanding across your A level. Now, we've already said a lot in terms of getting ready for a biology A level, but I want to just add one more point, which I think is to do with something that biologists are perhaps, it could be that some people are most scared of. If they're not scared of this, they're going to get scared by the mathematical content. So I'll quickly say with that, keep up with your mathematical skills so that you're not intimidated by those. And that comes with example questions. But I would say that people get intimidated by the essay component the most. So one thing I'm going to say is use the PEE structure. Which is to do with point, evidence, and analysis. So using the PEE structure helps you to really work out what you're going to say in every paragraph in relation to your essay. You want to be getting 6 paragraphs down as like a safe number. And if you're just looking at getting a good grade with this, I would suggest not writing an introduction or conclusion at all with this essay. It's something that is a weird thing for me to suggest. You do find this in lots of humanities subjects that you have to write an introduction and a conclusion. But in biology, you don't get marked on how well you write your introduction and conclusion. So I wouldn't even bother. And in a few examiner feedbacks, they have said with your answers in papers, it's probably better to bullet point your answers. You don't really hear that with other A-level subjects ever. So I would be taking that advice incredibly seriously based on examiner feedback. Make sure that with your answers, and this will save you time. I mean, I tend to take extra time in my tests. I didn't with these ones, and I still was able to do all of the questions. Bullet point your answers to longer responses apart from the essay, and then you will be able to manage your time a lot better when it comes to performing well in exams, but not just there, but in your module tests throughout the year too. So it was good to get into a regular habit of doing. Hey there, I hope you enjoyed that video. If you have, make sure you leave a comment in the comment section below. If you have any questions, we'd love to hear some discussions from you. Otherwise, if you think that this video is going to be useful for your friends or family, please share it. If you've liked it, make sure you like and subscribe to our channel. And if you want to get in touch with a tutor like me or any one of our subject experts on this, then please have a look at the information on screen and make sure you get in contact. And as always, best of luck with your application.